All right, we're live streaming. You guys can start.
Great. This is the November session of the Budget Advisory Committee meeting. Can we have a motion to commence the meeting?
Motion to commence.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So I thought we could just touch briefly on, our timing with, I think, replacing the one seat that we talked about, which was John Fall's seat. Ellen, I know you had somebody who might be interested. My wife has somebody who might be interested. I don't know if anybody else has anybody who might be interested, but did you have any updates, Ellen, with the prospect that?
No, I don't know what he's ended up doing. So he's a young guy. He's 25. He just passed. Well, he doesn't know. He just took the bar exam. So he's looking for a job. So he doesn't know where he'll land. He's currently living with his parents who are thinking about moving. So he doesn't want to make a commitment if he's not going to be here. But he was still thinking about it. So I don't know.
That's Brian Kerr, Ellen.
Yes.
Brian was on the traffic commission for a while with myself and Abby.
And I'm on an ad hoc committee with him. An ad hoc ethics code review committee, which is how I got to know him. But I did speak with him in lieu of the fair.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, I guess nobody signed up that night, so we didn't hold it because there would have been nobody on, unfortunately.
Right.
There was a debate that night, maybe not the best timing, but so that's encouraging. Although it sounds like his plans are unknown, but he has board experience, etc. I think my wife found somebody who has a financial services background and local board experience as well. So maybe we could pursue those, and then if anybody else has anybody else. And Dan Natchez, so the process would be to time this?
The process is they're supposed to send their resumes in by Thursday to Sally Roberts. The Board of Trustees will meet over the next couple of weeks. And on December 5, the organizational meeting will make appointments based on those who have submitted resumes, etc. If there are openings after that, they can be filled at any time. If your wife has somebody who's interested, I encourage you in the strongest possible manner to have them send in a email to Sally Roberts at sroberts at vomny.org, and we'll go from there.
All right, that all sounds good. And Ellen, if you want to, if there is a path with, his name was John, you had said?
Brian.
If there's a path with Brian and he thinks he might.
Brian knows the process. If he wants to do it, he'll do it. If he's unsure, he won't. The question is making a commitment now when you don't know where you're going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really what he actually had an initial concern, which we spoke about, his experience on the traffic commission committee, whatever it's called. He said he felt that none of their recommendations were brought to the board. The trustee who was their liaison didn't do anything. And Dan, I plugged you. I said, you've been great. You guide us, steer us in the right direction. If we want to get in front of the board, you get us on the agenda so that there are ongoing conversations. So he was very happy to hear that. So I don't know what he's doing. I'll reach out to him after this meeting.
Okay. Charles, I'm not sure if you have one opening or two openings. I thought we had two openings. I thought somebody dropped off in the middle of the year and then somebody dropped off towards the end of the year. But
Bill is up for renewal.
So I've indicated that I would like to renew.
Well, Bill is, so energetic and young. We got to keep him, we got to keep him.
But does Bill need to let Sally know?
I did.
Yes, but Bill has already done that. I've seen, I saw that come in.
Okay, good.
But I haven't seen anybody else come in for budget at this point. That doesn't mean that they haven't applied. It's just, it hasn't come across my desk yet.
Look at this.
So the committee is 7 members?
It's supposed to be,
Okay, so John is not here, right?
correct.
So that,
John Campbell.
right, John Campbell. And that means we have 1 vacancy because everyone else is here tonight.
Correct.
Right,
John
so
Paul
can you see-
vacancy.
John Paul's the, yeah, can you see the screen that I pulled up on the
Yes,
village website?
yes.
And then Bill's up for renewal. He'd like to continue. So right, it would just be the one for John Fall, and we'll see if we can get that filled.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, great. So to be continued with that, so item 2, I just thought we could take a look at, and I always pull up the prior from last year, but same concept. We had structured our year, and we talked about pulling forward a month, and whether that was realistic. It sounded like there was a viable path to doing that, particularly around when the work sessions would ultimately commence. But then there's the adjusted lead up to that. So here we are in November. If we kind of follow this forward. So at best, we would continue, hopefully get the worksheets to start looking at next month's meeting. We just talked about committee membership being determined. The review of the operating budget has been, a pattern as an ongoing thing, which is great. I put it on the agenda tonight to also maybe get some capital budget updates to see how we're trending with those projects. And then this is where it starts to get a little murky, is that in January, detailed review of the adopted budget, that's, referring to the prior year to, get that open, understand the structure again, go through it. Which is kind of
I think, Charles, I think it's also good because we're almost halfway through the budget
That's right.
idea of,
Yep.
how the revenues and expenses are and what the trend seems to be.
Yep.
And since I've interrupted you, which I apologize, let me do it one more time. Where is staff on getting back to the Board of Trustees on the recommendations from the Budget Committee on the capital project and the process? They had made recommendations to the board. The board referred it to staff to get back.
I don't have any updates right now.
Okay.
And at the last meeting, as long as we're interrupting, I believe Jerry said the feedback would be available for this week's trustee meeting. So obviously, Dan, you didn't get anything.
I thought we had done it for the 23rd. I thought we said that at the board meeting we talked about November, and because November, the first meeting was supposed to be so heavy, I think we shoved it to the second
Okay.
November. But I don't know, but okay, I'll send an email out to Jerry, but something you might follow up within your staff meeting. Okay.
I can
Okay.
definitely put it up during staff meeting.
Okay.
So, as we're going along, so February, committee recommendations to be provided by the end of February, Board of Trustees recommendations by late February, early March. That all seems that to accelerate that is going to be very challenging, just in general. And that I think we were talking about really trying to be able to get the work sessions pulled forward a little bit, so that from that point forward, we'd be a month ahead. So we can work toward that and then continue to try to get the feedback from the board as to whether they continue to feel that they're going to be able to accelerate. And I think the feedback was that they were comfortable with that, but we'll have to see. But does anybody, want to talk about how to do any of this differently, and changing the structure, let's say up to the beginning of March, if that's when the work sessions were occurring?
I think Jerry had come back and said that he could get the department heads to move their submissions up a month, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
Which means, in January, and it might be the end of January, but we could start reviewing, I'm going to say the proposed budget. I don't know what you want to call it. The pre-draft budget, against the actuals to see if it makes sense.
So
Could I just ask, Augie, is there any work being, or has the schedule been discussed with Jerry and part of your team getting together? And do you understand that the process is going to start earlier in terms of departmental submissions? So we should probably just try to get a sense of at least the village's, Augie or Jerry's understanding and steps that are being taken.
Budget committee has requested that we bring the process a little sooner. Jerry wants all department submissions by December 10th.
December
Wow.
10th.
So, and all of the 0.2 codes have to be cut by 10%. All of the 0.4 codes have to be cut by 10%.
Okay, so that's the instruction, that's the guidance being given to the department heads.
So unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of the numbers.
Yeah,
The health insurance numbers, the retirement numbers, the salaries or anything. So doing a 2-month projection, now you're asking us to do a 6 months projection. So how on target we're going to be this year is a different story.
yeah, no, I was talking about the fiscal 22 budget, right?
The current budget?
No,
No, for next year.
fiscal year
I'm talking
22.
about- Because our year starts in June, so we have to have it in by December 10th.
Okay,
That's the goal.
okay. And the 2 codes that you named, what were those? Personnel and non-personnel?
The personnel is governed by the CBA, so there's not much we could do there. The codes that we have to address are the equipment and contract services codes.
Okay, those are the 2 10% reduction codes.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm sorry, could you say what they were again, Augie?
Equipment and contract services.
Okay.
thank you, Augie.
Sure.
Okay, so we had department worksheets to be reviewed. Realistically, if those are being submitted by 12/10, that's our meeting is going to be right around that window. So you guys are obviously going to need some time to gather that and digest it.
Yep.
So that component of what we have on here, either we push the December meeting out a little bit, but then you're getting into the holiday, or that component is pushed into January, along with, when we say detailed review of adopted budget, we're doing that regularly anyway. So maybe with the worksheets getting pushed more into the January, that would be the focus in the January meeting.
And maybe what we could do in the December meeting is kind of do a divide and conquer. So we kind of split it up. Who's going to do what analysis, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. right? So that we're ready when we hit the January.
Or as soon as, you know,
Realistically, yeah, as soon as they're made available to us. So if
Yep.
Jerry, and Augie, if you guys can get those in between the December and January session, we will have, kind of divided up who's going to look at what. We'll have that month to look it over, and then when reconvening in January, be able to talk about it.
yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Now, Charles, you mentioned something that I want to circle back just a second to get an understanding. Our meeting in December is December 8th. That's the second Tuesday. So it's before the budget submissions. Now, you said I thought I heard you say, well, could we push the meeting back? Did you mean making it later in December, or what's your thought about the December 8th meeting? The purpose of that, is that where we separate things up?
Yeah, I think with Ellen's suggestion and kind of what I thought out, I think that would make sense. The idea 2 minutes ago was if the worksheets were coming in on the 10th and they could be prepared, and it's just not enough time for
Yeah.
Jerry yet to get through all of those. But if we had our meeting like on the 17th, a week later, would there be, any substantive feedback that he could provide on the worksheets? But I think it's too accelerated to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think you're right.
And this is helpful just to better understand timing going forward. So, that's now taking us, and again, it's very accelerated, but into February that, we're going to have some recommendations then ready to make by the end of February, early March, going into the early March work sessions that we would hopefully then be able to further attend. And then that's taking you to, the April, adoption by 4/1. And that's where that being pulled forward is giving us a little bit more time to take takeaways from the work sessions and then reincorporate additional recommendations leading up to 4/1.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think that month is going to help, but it's still going to be very tight for everybody. But that's where we're at. And then it would really be, what we've done the last couple of months, really better understanding the trends and the variances across line items and how things are shaping up. It's going to position us to be able to make decisions in real time more effectively in these upcoming meetings. So with that, if we, then turn to items 3 and 4, so Augie, I saw that you had forwarded the revenue and expense updates. Do you guys have a working document showing where the capital budget items stand year to date, or is that something you could, just talk about a little bit and go through some of the big items?
I can't talk fully on the capital budget because we don't have a working document. I mean, obviously, we've been going through this COVID, so a lot of capital projects and capital purchases have been held off. Right now, we've started to make more purchases with capital goods in the fire department, which have been approved the last 2 or 3 meetings. But all other major capital items or capital purchases have been held off until next year, so we can see what's going on with the current climate.
Okay, so I'd looked back, there was another document on the village website that kind of scanned in the worksheet that we were looking at. If we go to page 129 on this, I'm not necessarily seeing it. Maybe you have a better idea of where it is. You've got the debt service, but in terms of the projects being listed in the budget, so this is 122. just so that we're on the same page. Otherwise I could pull up that worksheet, but. So I don't know where the capital budget is in this document.
You're looking at it.
Do you know what page the dollar amounts are on?
They should be on page 105.
That's the staff.
Okay, so I have different page numbering than you. What year is this document that you're looking at?
This is this document, the
The
adopted.
current year.
Oh, you know what? I brought home the tentative budget, not the adopted. My bad.
Well, do you recall, Augie, what the total adopted capital budget was, the total dollar amount?
Let me pull it up.
All sources of funds.
I think it was like 15 million and change.
Yeah, I think you were right. Something on that ballpark, Charles. I just want to get, I'm trying to get anchored here as to the total amount, and then we can see if Augie can break that down in any way in terms of, we're going to have to find out what year to date and of course which projects and so on, but
So this is what I was looking at a little earlier, was on the website. You've got them listed like this. So this capital budget here, if I open that,
yeah.
it's a supplement. And here's our document actually right at the front, which is pretty cool.
Huh. I need to start billing the village for my services.
This got cut off, unfortunately, on the scan, but this is the document that can you guys see this?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is what we're familiar with this, and we had been looking at it and how some of these big ones spread. So, and Augie, I don't mean to put you on the spot with all this, but it sounds like really of this 15 million, like none of these big items are being done. And then, as far as some of the smaller things, are like the engineering department's projects moving, and, some of those replacement items, or
I'd have to go through each one to see. Some of the small ones may be done, but I'd have to go through each department and see which ones are done, or actually generate my capital project schedule to see what was purchased.
okay. So of the 15, I don't want to put you on the spot with it, but of the 15, if that's something we can look at, see where we're at, and maybe as our capital budget subcommittee, Len and I had talked about maybe circling back with you on better understanding the amortization schedules and structure and some of those mechanics, which is pretty involved. But maybe instead of that, we could set up some time to just kind of take a look at where we're at, and then report back to the group at one of the upcoming meetings and kind of unpack some of this. We could do it through email, and then Len and I could get together and go through it as well. But this way, we're not trying to do it live, and we could go from there.
Definitely possible.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Charles.
All right, great. And then I guess with that, we've seen that we have budgets. We don't always move forward with these items. A lot of them, would have zeros at the end of the year. I think the intent was to try to we're in a different environment, but the intent was to try to get through what was budgeted. But I think my point is that knowing where we are with this is going to then help understand how to look at the forward capital budget. You know, if we're trending to not do X, Y, and Z, we know that they're going to have to push out, and then that we can start to get our head around some of that forward planning.
Yeah. I think also the other piece I heard Augie say is basically, Augie, I heard you say, I assume for financial reasons that the village has decided not to make these investments this year simply because of the difficult economic environment as well as public health environment. Is that correct?
That
In
is
other
correct.
wo- Okay, so we're a usual year, hope. So the village has made a conscious decision to say, whoa, you know, we've got to be careful going forward. I hear you saying, Augie. So, so.
But also,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Lynn,
No, go
So-
ahead. Go ahead.
some of that is the Army Corps project. A big chunk.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting with the new administration.
I heard from someone on the flood committee before Election Day,
Yeah,
that it might be back if Biden wins, but who knows?
yeah. Well, that's part of the infrastructure program. We've been waiting for infrastructure week. So, in all seriousness, it could be something on the table.
One thing I just wanted to raise, I don't know if you guys have well, if you have the answer to this, and forgive me for not remembering specifically what it related to, but I thought somebody had asked me about this, and I recall that we were getting, for lack of a better word, fined on a monthly basis a pretty significant dollar amount for not contributing to one of these projects that we were required to.
The Westchester Joint Waterworks, we're getting fined daily.
Fined daily, okay. So,
Filtration plant.
and we're getting fined, and what is it? What is it a day again?
These are some of the questions you gotta ask me through email.
Yeah,
All right, we'll revisit that, and
Something like 10,000 a day.
10,000.
Right, but Augie, is this really a true fine? Like, will we ever really have to pay this?
I'm sure they're going to try to negotiate it,
Right.
you know.
I guess that's a whole loaded topic. Somebody put me on the spot with it, and I it's alarming, but there's a lot to it, obviously. So to be continued. We're making a calculated decision not to part with these funds for various reasons, and then these fines are accruing, and
Well, we don't have a decision on the water filtration plant. That's
Right.
part of the Westchester Joint Waterworks, and it's governed by 3 municipalities. So it's not that we made a decision not to move forward with building a water filtration plant. That's not within our purview. So let's not mix that up. We have
Yeah,
no,
it's not part of this budget.
correct.
Yeah,
okay, we'll leave it at that. Yeah, and I wasn't sure whether it was one of these for some reason that we had grants and we were getting fined, you know, within the Army Corps project or whatever, but to be continued. All right, so I guess we'll leave this. Do we want to look at the revenue and expense reports? We did that last month, you know, maybe focus on any updates since Augie, I don't know if you were on last month, but Jerry had walked us through year to date on both revenue and expenses up through last month's meeting, whatever date that was. You know, so maybe if there's any.
I took a quick look at what Augie sent out, and
yeah,
it's trending pretty much the same. There's nothing that jumped out based on
Mhm.
my quick look.
Eleanor Augie, then big picture, if you were to look at where we are now and where we're likely to be or may be by fiscal year end, both on the revenue and the expense side, how are we gonna, what are your thoughts about where we're gonna be relative to the adopted budget in total on both revenue and expenses? I mean, are expenses down, revenues down? Are we dipping more than anticipated into our reserves, or, you know, traffic, I think, or parking meter revenue maybe down? But in the aggregate,
So
Augie, can you say anything about where we're likely to, where we're trending, where we're likely to end up?
right now, it's still a little too early, but I could give you some, exciting snapshots of what's going on. The state controller published that Westchester County during third quarter sales tax receipts averaged an increase of 14%.
Oh, really?
Our third quarter came in at 1.1 million. We have budgeted for 900,000.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we're well in line with that. It would be nice to see what we get in February. That would give us a clearer picture how we're going to end up. But right now, sales are up.
Okay.
Sales are up, which is helping us. Building is starting to commence again. So we're getting building fees in. We're very comfortable with that. Our recreation department is starting to do more programs, which is COVID friendly. If the budget committee wants to recommend some COVID friendly activities, they can feel free to do so as well. So right now at the revenue side, I feel very confident we're going to meet target and if not exceed. Expenditures, on the other hand, we're within target range right now, based on the last set of expenditures that I sent to you. I'm not so concerned with the expenditures in that if we really need to, we have a little control over the expenditures on controlling them where
Yeah.
we end off.
Okay. Well, overall, that sounds good. Thank you. That's,
And
There
then-
are many of the categories. So in all fairness, my email from last week or whenever I was looking at the last doc focused on where we had issues, but there are many, many accounts where we had budgeted funds and we've spent nothing so far.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Of course, I only focused on the negative, not the positive.
Yeah.
Were there any questions, Ellen, that you wanted to dive further into that you had presented? I know Augie responded to quite a number of them, but anything to further unpack with that?
No, Augie cleared the mud for me. So it wasn't really the large 2.7, 2.8% budget increase that I thought it was, because that's what really had me crazy. Why did we announce we came in below the 2% cap if within 3-4 months we're raising the approved budget 2.7%? So once Augie cleared that up for me, I felt much better, even though we still increased the budget by a little over 1%. But the document that Laura sent out this afternoon explained most of that, which is really due to emergency funds having to do with Hurricane Isaias, I believe. Not that doc. Laura sent something else out this
Oh,
afternoon.
the supplement, yeah, yep.
Yeah, it's
The budget transfers and amendments.
right. So I looked at the amendments section and it was really all emergency expenditure related. So it was appropriate in my mind.
Mhm.
Not only with the COVID, we're getting hit with these storms. which
Right.
is-
I said most of it was the hurricane. So it's towards the end on that. Most of these are transfers. Keep scrolling.
There's 741,000 or so in total, I think. 51.
Yep. So, that's gone up, from where we were before, but there's nothing, to me anyway, that looks like it's irresponsible spending. I mean, we could question what the personnel is for sanitation. But that's 22,000, we're not talking a huge amount. Augie, Jerry already explained the school crossing guards. And the marina is bringing in more revenue, kind of offsetting this, so. I don't know that there's anything all that alarming here.
And keep in mind, a lot of this COVID-19 response is 75% reimbursable, if not 100%.
Mhm.
That's good to hear. But what all of this was leading, part of what's been going through my mind. So as much as we prepared a framework for capital spending, do we want to prepare, and this is just a question I'm throwing out to you guys, do we want to prepare recommendations to the board on budget amendments, on the operating amendments?
Did you have something specific in mind, Ellen?
Well, I thought, if we thought we should do a framework, then have a conversation. But I think, it should be somewhat based on, first, I'm going to use the word emergency, like storm management. You can't predict that, or COVID, clearly emergency. Followed by really well-documented reasons for unexpected expenditures, especially so early. I mean, we just finished the budget. I just want to make sure we don't get into a habit of approving budget amendments and just keep spending above and beyond the cap when everybody works so hard to get us in below the cap.
So we would be looking at the process and then associated recommendations for dynamic budget amendments throughout the fiscal year.
Right. If everyone thinks we should, make a proposal, but if not, then fine. I'll behave.
I think, if you want to come up with a strategy similar to the capital budget strategy of how you classify priorities, and exceptions, et cetera, I think that, is good. I know that there are some towns that will not accept changes in the budget in the first 6 months of the year as an operating rule, unless mandated by a legal action, a regulatory issue, a code compliance, or health and safety by mandate. For instance, SIS would be would qualify.
Yep.
But, we just helped a municipality try and go over a budget, and they wanted pricing for things that haven't even been designed because they have to put it in, they have timelines to put it in. They are actually on next year's budget now and have to submit next, the beginning of the month of December. So there are, a strategy for the village to follow, in terms of an outline, I think I think the village is actually doing it, but I don't think we have committed to a process of looking at it in the way I think you're thinking through it, Ellen.
Yep.
So if the committee feels that that's something they want to tackle, they should, you should go do that.
And then, one of the other things, if the police department wants to spend money on ABC that wasn't budgeted, if it's not an extreme emergency, the first ask should be what other expenses can the police cut?
Yeah, that's those things should, yes, it's sort of a self-funding.
Right, and that gets to the
initial sort of-
transfer of funds, I think, where they're moving from one account to another, but that should be the first thing that someone looks at as opposed to increasing the budget.
Yeah, yeah. Just back on the transfers or the budget adjustments we just looked at, Dan, is this, because I see COVID-19 storm, storm management, is this typical amount or atypical? If you go back in your tenure on the board, I don't remember what it was last year.
For COVID, is you asking for? Or?
No, I'm just talking about in general, in terms of the number of changes, the quantity of these adjustments.
Well, when I was first on the board, I will tell you that the budget meant nothing.
So there were a lot of them.
Not only were there a lot of them, there was no prioritizing. It was whoever, whatever squeaky wheel was actually, acted on at the moment is what was acted upon.
Okay.
The village has come a long way. And I think, I think if you took the COVID out and the storm out, which are not in inconsequential numbers.
That's right.
Numbers themselves are not, way significant. But I think you're right. The question is, why are we having them? And is there a better way of trying to manage it? And I'm not sure that's the right phraseology. Is there a better way to identify the justification for it? A part of it is cost effectiveness. Part of it, why wasn't it, in the budget before? What was overlooked? Not as a punitive measure, but how do we learn from it? So for the next time, we're better. We have a better understanding, and the budget is better for it.
Yep.
I'm not a believer of punitive approaches. I'm a believer of proactive approaches. Of setting approaches that can better us in the long run, if we can better identify why.
Yep.
Not change the result, but it sets forth a much clearer path. So when something comes up, the question is, how does it fit in?
Just out of curiosity, what was the contract services for storm management? For 140,000.
I'm not sure. Augie, can you give us an indication of that? I would assume it is for, cut trees, et cetera, but I don't know.
Correct. A lot of it is damage that came from the storm and repairs that had to be made. That's Hurricane Isaias.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of that, part of that was there's a seawall, and I don't know how much of that was in there. But that was not a small item.
All right.
All right. So
I'll take
guess-
a stab at I'm sorry, Charles.
no, go ahead.
I'll take a stab following the capital framework for operating expenses. I'll take a stab at putting something together and get it out to everyone
Good,
prior to our next meeting.
good.
All right, that's great. Yeah, it's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
And then Len, you and I can circle back, and John Campbell is part of the capital budget subcommittee. And John, I don't know if you were on for that, but we'll circle back offline and work with Augie to just take a look at kind of where we're at year to date with the capital budget.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Um, Augie, I just want to ask something. I think Alan has asked this question before, especially as we go into the budget process. Is it possible to get a time series? In other words, over 3-4 years of the expenditures, the expenses, both the actual expenses and going into the new budget year in an Excel form? Is that possible to get in an Excel format?
You can get it in a CSV format.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
It's very easy to convert CSV to Excel.
It is?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
If I could do it, Lynn, anybody can do it.
Well, we'll
Want to
see.
make a bet?
Yeah. I think we'll have to have a contest on that. But,
Excel will read a CSV file typically.
yeah.
Yes.
Then you can just copy and then save it as a Excel X year
Yeah.
file.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward.
But I mean, in this example on this page, let's say in the original budget column, just for the sake of discussion, under the seasonal labor line, would you have that same account over, let's say, the actual expenditures over the last 3 to 5 years? So that essentially in a table, and I thought of this, Ellen, when you were talking about the reasons for adjustments, and perhaps it relates to sort of, okay, if things have trended up or down or stable over time, and then all of a sudden we have a jump,
Yep.
it might help the thinking about what's behind it. But also, if in the budget the coming year there's a large requested increase or decrease from prior years, not just the single prior year, then that may raise some questions on our part as well. So I don't know how hard that is, Augie, to get what I just described over multiple years.
You could email me what you're looking for. I could see if that's a canned report we have or if it has to be done manually.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And as long as I could convert one of these pages, I think you sent us something. Can these pages?
I know we could run a budget document.
Well, no, I was just going to ask is if what was sent to us, if I could convert that into an Excel form, then I could share with you more precisely what I'm thinking.
So if you look at the general fund expenditures, are you looking for a report similar to that? Where you have 2018, 2019, and then the current amount?
Yeah, you mean that's in the budget document?
Yes.
Yes.
You're looking for something like that?
Yes, although see, from an analytical point of view, you might want to compress certain lines because
Right, but
yeah,
there's the ultimate problem. Once I give it to you, it's a CSV.
yeah.
To do all that compression, that might take a couple of hours.
Well, no, I'm saying if you convert it to an Excel, you can do that.
You have this as a source Excel file.
No, the source is CSV.
That's the CSV.
That should be fine though. Yeah, I mean,
It's a CSV.
That's fine.
yeah, that works. And then if there are prior years, I guess, if you have prior years in Excel and they're not consolidated, we could do a VLOOKUP and do it by line item and then build
Right.
it in.
Right. You could match it up by VLOOKUP, and that's where I'm really bad.
Yeah.
I can convert CSV. I can't do VLOOKUPs.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go too nuts on this. It was just a thought I had. So to be helpful, Augie, I do agree. It's up to me to share with you what I would like. And if I could just take from what was sent to us and convert it to Excel, it would be a lot easier, which I will try, which I will work on.
No, but this PDF can't be converted.
What was sent to us cannot be, yeah, it's a PDF, huh? Yeah.
He's got the CSV, I guess, of this though, right, Augie, of
Yep.
the one that we're looking at on the screen.
Right. Last week, you guys sent us the report from last month. in an Excel.
Yeah, that was done manually. That took 3 to 4 hours.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
so you don't have these
we did that for
generated?
Jerry, we have to do that every month. That could cost a lot of time.
You can't run this from your system in CSV?
Right, but the report you got was fully edited. So it looks
Jesus.
almost like the printout. We run it to CSV, it looks completely different.
Can you
Gotcha.
send us a sample in the CSV format? That
Absolutely,
takes you no time to do and we'll see what it looks like?
absolutely. I recommended that.
Yeah, so if that works, then that's fine. We don't want you spending 4 or 5 hours playing with the document.
yeah, no, that's silly. So just send us what is easy, Augie, and we'll,
Revenue and expenditures?
I'm just for sample purposes. So you don't have to send us an enormous report, just, decide, yeah, this is 5 of 28 here. Okay, send us the 28, if that's easily sendable. You know what I mean? This is just for sample purposes, not for any, heavy duty analytics.
Right.
Yeah, like being able in the CSV to stick a column in here and take the
Yep.
delta between the original budget versus the adjusted, and then you'll see wherever the amendments were made.
Yep. I did that on the Excel from last week.
Cool. All right, great. Yeah, so did anyone have anything else? I think we have next steps. We can
John
go
has
from
joined
there.
us, just so you know, Charles.
What's that?
John has joined us, just so you know.
I did see that. Is everybody good? All right, well, a motion to adjourn? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in
Third.
favor?
Aye,
Aye.
aye.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Thanks, you too.
Good
Take
night.
care. Joe, thank you again.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.